How to stop overthinking everything fast. Overthinking is one of the most common struggles in today's fast-paced, high-pressure world. Yet many people silently suffer with it every single day. It's that endless mental loop that keeps you stuck, second-guessing your words, replaying past mistakes, overanalyzing every decision, and constantly worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. And the most exhausting part? Most people around you don't even see the storm going on inside your head. You could be smiling on the outside while your mind is busy rehearsing 100 worst-case scenarios or mentally re-editing every sentence you said in a conversation. Overthinking often disguises itself as being responsible or thorough, but the truth is, it's mentally draining, emotionally paralyzing, and deeply damaging to your confidence and peace. It makes even the simplest choices feel overwhelming, and the longer it goes unchecked, the more it begins to affect your sleep, your relationships, your ability to be present, and your overall mental health. But here's the truth we don't hear enough. Overthinking doesn't mean you're broken or weak. It means you care deeply, and your mind is trying to keep you safe. It's trying to predict and prepare for every outcome so you won't get hurt. But this protective habit, while well-meaning, can become toxic when it keeps you stuck in fear and inaction. That's why we need to talk about it, not just to understand what overthinking is, but to shine a light on why it happens, how it affects our daily lives, and most importantly, how we can begin to change it. Too many people believe they're alone in this experience, but you're not. In truth, overthinking is more common than we realize, and it often comes from unhealed emotional wounds, fear of failure, perfectionism, or the simple pressure of trying to do everything right. By talking about it openly, we break the silence. We remove the shame. We begin the journey back to mental clarity. And through simple tools, mindset shifts, and daily habits, it really is possible to stop overthinking everything and start living with more trust, peace, and freedom. You don't have to be trapped in your head forever. The first step is to understand what's going on, and this is where that journey begins. Part 1. Understanding what overthinking really is. Overthinking is one of the most mentally exhausting habits we carry, yet many of us don't even realize we're doing it, because it can disguise itself as being cautious, responsible, or detail-oriented. But the truth is, overthinking isn't just thinking too much. It's thinking in a way that traps you in anxiety, doubt, and fear. It's the inner voice that never rests, constantly questioning everything you say or do. It's when your brain gets stuck in a mental loop, replaying the past, obsessing over the future, worrying about every possible outcome, and asking, "What if?" over and over again. At its core, overthinking is not clarity. It's confusion, not control. It's fear. It creates the illusion that the more you analyze something, the safer you'll be. But in reality, it keeps you stuck in hesitation and robs you of peace. You start overanalyzing simple decisions, reading too much into people's words, fearing judgment, regretting past mistakes, or predicting problems before they even exist. What makes overthinking so sneaky is that it feels productive at first. It feels like you're trying to get things right. But what it really does is delay action, magnify problems, and create unnecessary stress. It leaves you emotionally drained, disconnected from your intuition, and often frozen in indecision. You may find yourself re-editing that message 5 times before sending it, avoiding conversations because you've already imagined 100 uncomfortable outcomes, or lying awake at night revisiting every awkward moment from your past. And yet, despite all this thinking, you don't feel better. You feel worse. That's because overthinking doesn't lead to better decisions. It leads to self-doubt, mental fatigue, and the fear of taking the next step. To stop overthinking effectively, we have to first understand what it really is. It's not a personality trait or a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a survival strategy. Your brain uses overthinking as a defense mechanism, believing that by overanalyzing everything, you can avoid failure, disappointment, or emotional pain. It's trying to protect you from the unknown. This often comes from deeper emotional roots, childhood conditioning, past traumas, fear of being judged, or a lack of self-trust. Somewhere along the way, you may have learned that it wasn't safe to make mistakes, or that you had to be perfect to be accepted. So now, your mind tries to think its way to safety. But instead of protecting you, overthinking often becomes a cage that locks you out of the present moment. The good news? Overthinking is not permanent. It's a learned habit, and that means it can be unlearned. The first step is awareness. When you start to notice how often your mind spins in circles, how your thoughts get louder when you're tired or stressed, and how you're constantly seeking certainty, you begin to take your power back. You begin to understand that your thoughts are just that. Thoughts, not facts. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. And in that awareness, you open the door to healing. You don't have to stop thinking altogether. Our minds are naturally active, but you can shift your relationship with your thoughts. You can learn to quiet the noise, to pause before spiraling, and to gently guide yourself back to calm, one breath at a time. So let's start there, not by judging your overthinking, but by understanding it, not by trying to fix yourself, but by becoming curious about the patterns. Because when you understand what overthinking really is, you can begin to untangle it, not through force, but through kindness, clarity, and conscious change. Part 2. The Hidden Roots of Overthinking. To truly stop overthinking, we must go deeper than the surface level and explore where it comes from. Because overthinking isn't just a random bad habit. It's often a deeply rooted response to emotional pain, fear, and unmet needs. One of the biggest hidden roots of overthinking is fear of failure. Many people grow up believing that making mistakes means you're weak, irresponsible, or not good enough. So to avoid failure, your brain works overtime trying to consider every possible outcome. It analyzes every choice, replays every interaction, and imagines every worst-case scenario, all in the hope of staying safe. Another root is perfectionism, the belief that you must do everything perfectly or not at all. If you've internalized the idea that your worth depends on getting things right, then every task becomes high stakes, and your mind overthinks even the smallest details out of fear of being judged or rejected. There's also the fear of what others think, social anxiety, and the need for approval. If you constantly overthink your words, behaviors, or appearance, it might be because at some point you learned that love or acceptance was conditional. Now, your mind tries to control how others see you, hoping to earn approval by avoiding mistakes, conflict, or embarrassment. Another powerful root of overthinking is lack of self-trust. When you don't believe in your own ability to make good decisions, your mind fills the gap by second-guessing everything. You search for validation, you hesitate, you analyze from every angle, because deep down you're afraid to trust your instincts. Many people who struggle with overthinking were never taught to listen to themselves. They were taught to please others, follow rules, or avoid rocking the boat. Over time, this erodes confidence and creates a dependency on external answers. Childhood experiences, especially ones involving criticism, neglect, emotional unpredictability, or trauma, also shape how our minds operate. If your early environment made you feel unsafe, unseen, or constantly evaluated, your brain might have learned to stay hypervigilant, always preparing, planning, and protecting. Overthinking, then, becomes a coping mechanism, a way to feel like you're in control of situations that once made you feel powerless. But here's the hopeful truth. Once you understand these roots, you can begin to heal them. You can begin to challenge the beliefs that say you're not allowed to make mistakes, that you're only valuable if you're perfect, or that you must earn love by being constantly careful. Overthinking thrives in the absence of safety and self-worth. So the path forward isn't about forcing your mind to be quiet. It's about gently rebuilding trust in yourself. It's about telling your nervous system, I am safe now, and showing your inner child that they no longer need to live in fear. When you work on healing the roots, the branches, the overthinking, the anxiety, the self-doubt begin to loosen their grip. Real change happens from the inside out. And as you grow more compassionate, grounded, and confident, the noise in your head begins to fade, and peace starts to take its place. Part 3. Recognize the pattern. Interrupt the spiral. One of the most powerful ways to stop overthinking is to learn how to recognize when it starts, because overthinking often follows a predictable pattern, like a mental spiral that starts small and quickly gains momentum. At first, it might just be a tiny worry. Did I say the wrong thing? Or, what if I made a mistake? Then your brain latches on to that thought, spinning it in every direction, digging into the past for evidence, or projecting imaginary disasters into the future. Before long, you feel anxious, overwhelmed, and emotionally exhausted, stuck in a loop of your own thoughts. But here's the key. If you can catch the spiral early, you can interrupt it before it takes over. Recognizing the pattern means becoming aware of your personal triggers. Maybe it's after a social event before making a decision or when you're tired or stressed. Start noticing the physical signs too, a tight chest, racing heart, clenching jaw, or a feeling of dread. These are not just random. They're signals that your mind has slipped into overthinking mode. Instead of letting your thoughts run wild, pause and name what's happening. I'm starting to spiral. This is a pattern. I've been here before. This simple act of awareness is powerful. It creates a small but meaningful gap between you and your thoughts, And in that gap, you can choose to respond differently. Interrupting the spiral doesn't mean you'll silence every anxious thought forever. It means you become skilled at not letting them control you. One way to do this is by grounding yourself in the present moment. Use your senses. Look around the room. Name 5 things you can see or touch. Feel your feet on the floor and take a few slow, deep breaths. This helps shift your attention from your mind to your body, from fear to presence. Another technique is asking yourself gentle questions like, is this thought helpful? Or, do I really know this is true? Or even, what would I say to a friend who was thinking this? These questions help disrupt the automatic loop and invite self-compassion instead of criticism. You can also create a pattern interrupt by doing something physical. Get up, drink water, go outside, stretch, journal, or simply move your body. These small shifts can stop the mental loop in its tracks and help your brain reset. Overthinking thrives on momentum, so even a tiny interruption can create a powerful change. Remember, the goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Every time you recognize the spiral and gently interrupt it, you're retraining your brain. You're building a new habit of calm, grounded thinking. And over time, that becomes your new normal. Part 4. The power of the present moment. One of the most effective ways to quiet the storm of overthinking is to reconnect with the one place where overthinking cannot survive, the present moment. Overthinking lives in the past and the future. It replays what's already happened, trying to make sense of mistakes, awkward moments, or regrets, or it jumps ahead, imagining all the possible outcomes, worst-case scenarios, and what-ifs. But the truth is, none of that exists right now. The only place you are truly alive is here, in this moment, breathing, listening, being. That's why learning to return to the present moment is like finding a safe harbor in the middle of a mental storm. The present moment doesn't ask you to solve everything. It doesn't demand perfection. It simply invites you to be, without judgment, without pressure, without fear. When you learn to ground yourself in the now, you take back control from your racing thoughts. You begin to see clearly again. You stop following the mind's endless loop and instead begin to feel your breath, your body, your surroundings. Even a few seconds of being fully present can interrupt the spiral of overthinking and give your nervous system the calm it desperately needs. Living in the present doesn't mean ignoring the future or denying the past. It means not allowing them to dominate your life. It means choosing to focus your energy and attention on what you can actually control, your thoughts, your breath, your actions right now. Simple practices like mindful breathing, grounding exercises, observing nature, or doing one task with full attention can powerfully bring you back to the now. Try this. Take a slow breath in, hold it for a moment, and exhale slowly. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice the air against your skin. Hear the sounds around you. You are safe in this moment. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need all the answers. You just need to be here. The more you practice presence, the more space you create between you and your thoughts. You begin to realize that your thoughts don't control you. You can watch them come and go without getting caught in them. That's the true power of the present moment. It's not just a calming idea, it's a real, practical tool for reclaiming your peace, your clarity, and your life from the grip of overthinking. And the best part? It's always available to you, one breath, one heartbeat, one small moment at a time. Part 5. Write it down, don't hold it in. One of the simplest yet most powerful tools to calm a racing mind is to write it down. When you're overthinking, your thoughts swirl around in your head like an endless loop, gaining speed and intensity until they feel overwhelming. Your brain becomes a tangled web of fears, questions, doubts, and imagined scenarios, all screaming for attention. But something almost magical happens when you take those thoughts and move them out of your mind and onto paper. Suddenly, what felt massive and chaotic becomes visible, manageable, and far less intimidating. Writing gives your thoughts a place to land. It turns invisible noise into something you can see, reflect on, and release. It also creates space in your mind. Space for stillness, for clarity, and for self-compassion. The act of writing isn't about solving every problem. It's about letting your mind breathe. It's giving yourself permission to stop carrying everything inside. When you journal, you're not bottling things up. You're creating a safe and private outlet for everything you don't feel ready to say out loud. And that in itself is deeply healing. There's no right or wrong way to do it. You don't need fancy words or perfect grammar. You can start with a simple prompt like, "What's really on my mind right now?" Or, "What am I afraid of?" Let your hand move without judgment. Let your emotions spill onto the page. Write as if no one is ever going to read it, because they won't. This is just for you. You can write about what happened today, what's worrying you, what you wish you could say, or even how tired you feel from thinking so much. Journaling allows you to slow down and become aware of your patterns. You begin to notice recurring fears, repetitive thoughts, and emotional triggers. You can begin to question them gently. Ask yourself if they're really true, or simply sit with them in compassion. Sometimes, just seeing your thoughts on paper is enough to quiet them. Other times, writing helps you understand where those thoughts are coming from. Childhood wounds, perfectionism, insecurity, or a need for control. In either case, the act of writing is like opening a valve in a pressure cooker. It gives your mind the release it needs so it doesn't explode with overwhelm. And here's the beautiful part. Journaling can become a daily habit of emotional care. It doesn't have to take long. Just 5 or 10 minutes a day can shift the way you experience your thoughts. Over time, it teaches you that you don't have to hold everything inside. You don't have to fix everything instantly. You just need a safe place to process, reflect, and breathe. Writing isn't just about organizing your thoughts. It's about liberating them. And in doing so, you give yourself the gift of peace, one page at a time. Part 6. Movement breaks the mental loop. When your mind is spinning in circles and you feel stuck in a fog of overthinking, one of the fastest and most effective ways to interrupt that loop is through movement. Overthinking lives in the mind, but healing often begins in the body. When we sit still for long periods, especially while ruminating, our energy becomes trapped in our heads, building pressure like steam in a kettle. That's why taking even a small movement break can shift your entire state of being. Whether it's a short walk, stretching your arms, doing a few yoga poses, dancing to music, or just standing up and changing your posture, movement sends a powerful signal to your brain. We are not stuck. It physically shakes you out of mental paralysis and reconnects you to the present moment. Movement changes your physiology, increases oxygen flow to the brain, and stimulates the release of feel-good chemicals like endorphins and dopamine. These aren't just scientific facts. They're part of the natural design of your body to regulate stress and restore balance. When you move, you create momentum, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Overthinking tends to trap you in analysis mode, where you're trying to think your way out of uncertainty or anxiety. But most of the time, thinking more only adds fuel to the fire. Your thoughts loop back on themselves, recycling the same fears and what-ifs, leading you deeper into indecision and self-doubt. Movement, however, pulls you out of your head and into your body, into a state of doing instead of just thinking. And it doesn't have to be intense or time-consuming. Just 5 minutes of walking outside, doing gentle stretches, or even pacing around your room can bring surprising clarity and calm. Movement helps you reset. It grounds you. It reminds you that you're not just a mind full of spinning thoughts. You're a whole human being with breath, strength, and presence. You begin to feel more anchored, more capable, and more in control. It also opens the door to intuition. While your thinking mind may be filled with noise, your body carries wisdom. Often, the insights and clarity you've been searching for through overthinking begin to arise naturally after movement, when the mind has quieted down and the body has come alive. So the next time you find yourself stuck in a mental loop, don't just try to outthink it. Move through it. Get up, stretch, walk, breathe. Let your body become your ally in the healing process. Because sometimes the path to a clear mind starts not with another thought, but with a single gentle step. Part 7. Use the thought stop and replace method. One of the most practical and empowering ways stop overthinking in its tracks is by using the thought stop and replace method, a simple yet powerful cognitive tool that helps you interrupt anxious thought patterns and consciously guide your mind in a healthier direction. Overthinking often feels automatic, like your brain is running on autopilot, cycling through worries, regrets, and worst-case scenarios without your permission. But the truth is, you have more control over your thoughts than you think. And this method helps you claim that control. The first step is to become aware of when your thoughts start spiraling. The moment you notice that you're obsessively replaying something from the past, overanalyzing a situation, or fearing what hasn't even happened yet, pause. Say to yourself, silently or out loud, stop. This single word acts as a mental boundary, a firm but gentle way of signaling to your mind that you're not going to continue down that path. You're interrupting the cycle before it gains more power. It might feel strange at first, but even saying stop internally begins to break the pattern of unconscious overthinking and brings your awareness back to the present moment. But stopping alone isn't enough because your mind still needs something to focus on. That's where the second step comes in. Replace the thought. After you say stop, replace the negative or looping thought with a more helpful, grounded, or kind one. For example, if your original thought was, I'm going to mess this up, replace it with, I may not be perfect, but I can handle this step by step. If your mind says, they probably think I'm weird, respond with, I don't need to read minds. I'm doing my best, and that's enough. The goal isn't to fake positivity or deny real concerns, but to offer your mind a healthier narrative, one based on truth, self-compassion, and possibility. You're training your brain to stop defaulting to fear and start choosing calm and clarity. Like any new habit, this takes practice. At first, you might only catch yourself after you've been overthinking for a while, but that's still progress. The more often you use thought stop and replace, the more natural it becomes. Over time, your brain begins to follow new pathways. Less fear, more trust, less rumination, more peace. This method reminds you that you are not a passive victim of your thoughts. You can pause. You can redirect. You can choose again. And in that simple shift lies the foundation for lasting mental freedom. Part 8. Set a worry timer. One of the most surprisingly effective tools to reduce overthinking is setting a simple boundary around your worry, what many psychologists call a worry timer. This technique works because one of the biggest problems with overthinking is that it feels constant. Worries pop up at all hours, interrupt your focus, hijack your peace, and often show up right when you're trying to relax, sleep, or concentrate. The brain, in its attempt to protect you, brings up the same fear or problem again and again, hoping that if you keep thinking about it, you'll find a solution. But what actually happens is that you burn out mentally, and the problem remains unresolved. That's where the worry timer comes in. By giving yourself specific permission to worry, but only during a limited time, you train your mind to stop treating worry as a 24/7 emergency. You might choose 10, 15, or 20 minutes per day, scheduled at the same time, for example, 6 p.m. During that time, sit with your thoughts. Write them down if you want. Let your mind express all its fears, doubts, and questions. But when the timer goes off, you stop. You tell yourself, that's enough for today. I've given these thoughts attention, and now I'm moving on. At first, your brain might resist. It may try to sneak in worry thoughts outside the designated time. That's normal. It's just an old habit trying to survive. But when you gently but firmly say, nope, I'll think about that during my worry time, you begin to take back control. You're not suppressing your thoughts. You're containing them. You're creating a healthy mental boundary. Just like we don't answer emails all day long, we don't need to entertain worries around the clock. And something remarkable starts to happen. The urgency fades. The thoughts that once felt overwhelming begin to lose their grip. Sometimes, when worry time arrives, the thoughts that seemed so urgent hours earlier now feel less important, or they've already passed on their own. This practice also builds emotional discipline. It shows your mind that you are in charge, not your fears. And over time, this structure reduces your anxiety, improves your focus, and frees up mental space for creativity, presence, and peace. Setting a worry timer isn't about ignoring problems. It's about choosing when and how to face them with clarity and balance. In a world that constantly pushes us to react immediately to every fear, this small practice is a powerful act of self-respect and emotional freedom. Part 9. Talk it out with someone safe. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do to stop overthinking is also one of the simplest. Talk to someone you trust. When you're trapped in a loop of anxious thoughts, it can feel like you're drowning in your own mind. Your inner critic gets louder, your fears multiply, and your perspective becomes warped by the echo chamber of your own worries. But when you speak your thoughts aloud to someone who listens with kindness, patience, and without judgment, something powerful happens. Your mental pressure begins to release. The act of talking helps you organize your thoughts, hear them more clearly, and often realize that they're not as scary, irrational, or overwhelming as they felt in your head. It allows you to externalize what you've been internalizing. Sometimes you don't even need advice or solutions. Just a safe space to be heard can help your nervous system relax and bring clarity where there was once confusion. Talking to someone safe, whether it's a close friend, therapist, mentor, or even a supportive family member, reminds you that you're not alone. Overthinking tends to isolate us. We assume others don't understand or that our thoughts are too much. But in reality, most people have struggled with similar doubts and fears at some point in their lives. When you share honestly, you often receive compassion, reassurance, or simply a reflection that grounds you back to reality. And even if the person doesn't have all the answers, their calm presence and empathy can help regulate your emotions. It creates a sense of connection that directly counters the loneliness and self-doubt that fuel overthinking. On a psychological level, voicing your thoughts out loud engages different parts of the brain. It shifts you from emotional reactivity to logical reasoning, making it easier to process what's true, what's exaggerated, and what can be let go. If you're not ready to talk to someone directly, even recording yourself on your phone or speaking out loud while alone can create a similar effect. The goal isn't to dump your thoughts on others, but to give your mind the opportunity to express, release, and gain perspective, something that's nearly impossible to do when thoughts stay trapped inside. Overthinking thrives in silence and secrecy. Healing begins when your thoughts are brought into the light. When you find the courage to talk it out with someone safe, you give yourself the gift of perspective, support, and often unexpected relief. Part 10. Build a self-soothing toolbox. One of the most compassionate and effective ways to stop overthinking is by creating your own self-soothing toolbox. A collection of practices, activities, and reminders that help calm your mind and regulate your emotions when the mental noise gets too loud. Overthinking often signals an overwhelmed nervous system. Your brain is trying to make sense of discomfort, uncertainty, or emotional pain by thinking its way to safety. But what it really needs is comfort, reassurance, and a sense of inner safety. Not more thinking. That's where your self-soothing toolbox comes in. It's a personalized set of calming tools you can turn to when your thoughts start spiraling. Just like we carry tools to fix things in the physical world, this toolbox helps you fix your inner overwhelm, not by avoiding your thoughts, but by meeting them with care and grounding. This toolbox might include physical actions like deep breathing, sipping warm tea, wrapping yourself in a blanket, taking a warm shower, going for a mindful walk, or listening to calming music. These small acts send signals to your brain and body that say, you are safe. You don't need to panic. You're allowed to rest. But your toolbox isn't just about physical comfort. It can also include emotional and mental tools. This could be journaling, repeating calming affirmations, practicing mindfulness, or having a saved list of comforting quotes or reminders on your phone. You might keep a list of things that ground you, places, people, smells, textures, or memories that make you feel safe and present. Even writing a letter to your overthinking mind, acknowledging its worries and gently responding with compassion, can be deeply soothing. The goal is to teach your mind that peace is accessible, even in moments of chaos. You're not just reacting to the spiral anymore. You're proactively nurturing yourself through it. Having these tools ready means you don't have to search for solutions in the heat of anxiety. You already have a plan. And the more you use your toolbox, the more your brain learns to associate stressful thoughts with calming actions, instead of panic. Over time, your self-soothing techniques become automatic, like second nature. They replace the habit of overthinking with a new habit, turning inward with care instead of fear. Building your self-soothing toolbox is an act of self-love. It's you saying to yourself, when things get hard, I will be here for me. And in a world that often tells us to push through, fix everything, or be perfect, that kind of gentle self-support is a radical and healing choice. Part 11. Replace overthinking with small, grounded action. One of the most powerful antidotes to overthinking is not more thinking. It's action, even if it's small and imperfect. Overthinking thrives on delay, hesitation, and endless analysis. It convinces you that you need more time, more clarity, or more certainty before you can act. But what you really need is momentum. Taking even the tiniest step forward can break the mental loop and shift your brain from a state of anxiety to state of progress. That's because action grounds you in reality. It brings your energy out of your head and into the present moment, where life is actually happening. You don't need to fix everything all at once. You don't have to have it all figured out. But you can send the email. You can clean the room. You can step outside for fresh air. You can make the call, write one sentence, or take the first step of a task you've putting off. These may seem like small things, but they send a big message to your brain. I'm not stuck. I'm moving forward. Overthinking often makes problems feel larger than life because the mind imagines every possible outcome, especially the worst ones. But action reminds you that you can handle life in real time, not in your imagination. And as you take those small steps, you start to build trust in yourself. You begin to prove to your mind that it doesn't have to plan for every risk or overanalyze every choice. It just has to move gently, honestly, and consistently. Over time, this builds confidence, and confidence quiets overthinking. The goal isn't to rush or force yourself into constant productivity. It's to break the paralysis that comes from thinking without end. Even if you don't feel fully ready, taking one grounded step is better than thinking in circles for hours. And with each small action, your anxiety shrinks, your mind clears, and your sense of control returns. This is how you begin to reclaim your power, not through perfect plans, but through simple, intentional movement. So the next time your thoughts start spinning, ask yourself gently, what is one small thing I can do right now to help myself feel calm, clear, or closer to a solution? Then do it, no matter how small it is, because that small step may be the very thing that sets you free. Part 12. Practice self-compassion every single time. If there is one practice that gently but powerfully melts the grip of overthinking, it is self-compassion. The quiet inner voice that says, it's okay to be human. Overthinking often comes from a place of self-criticism, fear of failure, and the painful belief that you must get everything right or else you're not enough. It feeds on perfectionism and shame, convincing you that every mistake defines your worth, every awkward moment was a disaster, and every wrong choice makes you unlovable or weak. But what overthinking really needs is not more pressure. It needs kindness. It needs you to respond to your spiraling thoughts the same way you would comfort a scared child or a struggling friend, with patience, softness, and understanding. Self-compassion doesn't mean you avoid responsibility or never try to grow. It means you offer yourself grace in the process. You remind yourself that overthinking is not a flaw. It's a coping mechanism. And like all coping mechanisms, it formed to protect you when you didn't feel safe. But now, you're learning new ways. You're learning that you don't have to bully yourself to be better. You can be gentle and still grow. You can make mistakes and still be worthy. Practicing self-compassion every time you catch yourself overthinking is a game changer. It turns those moments from shame spirals into healing opportunities. When your thoughts start racing, try pausing and saying to yourself, "This is hard right now, and that's okay. I'm allowed to feel overwhelmed. I'm learning. I don't have to be perfect." These words are like a balm for your nervous system. They calm your inner critic and create space for clarity to return. You can place a hand on your heart, breathe deeply, and remind yourself, I am doing my best with what I know today. Over time, this practice rewires your brain. It helps you create a new default response, one where, instead of spiraling into self-doubt or punishment, you respond with compassion and care, and the more you do it, the more inner safety you build. You stop fearing your thoughts and instead begin to trust yourself to handle them with kindness. This is the heart of emotional resilience. Not never struggling, but knowing how to support yourself through it. So every single time the overthinking comes, don't fight yourself. Meet it with compassion. Make that your habit, your anchor, your superpower. Because when you show up for yourself with gentleness, everything changes, and the noise in your mind begins to soften, one loving thought at a time. Closing reflection. You are not your thoughts. As you reach the end of this journey, there's one truth you must carry forward, gently and deeply. You are not your thoughts. Your mind is a beautiful, powerful, complex tool, but it is not you. Overthinking can make you forget that. It can pull you into a mental fog where every doubt, fear, or worst-case scenario feels like a reflection of who you are. It can make you believe that your worth is tied to your mistakes, that your future depends on obsessing over every detail, or that your past defines your present. But none of this is true. Thoughts are like weather. They pass through the sky of your mind. Some are heavy storms, some are light clouds, and some are simply noise. But you are the sky, vast, steady, unshaken. You are the calm awareness beneath the chatter. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it's true. Just because your mind replays something doesn't mean you are stuck in it forever. Overthinking is a habit, not an identity. And habits can be changed, slowly, gently, with compassion and care. The freedom begins the moment you stop identifying with every thought you have. You begin to notice them instead of becoming them. You step back and say, "There's a fearful thought, but I don't have to follow it." You start to choose what stays and what goes. This is not about silencing your mind. It's about not letting it lead you into suffering. It's about creating space between you and the voice that always demands perfection, certainty, or control. That space is where peace lives. That space is where your healing begins. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not weak because you overthink. You are human, learning to navigate a noisy world with a heart that feels deeply. And every time you pause, breathe, move, write, or choose self-compassion, you are rewriting your story, one thought at a time. So hold this truth close. Your thoughts do not define your truth. You are wiser, stronger, and more free than your mind would have you believe. And every small step you take to return to that truth brings you closer to a life of clarity, calm, and deep inner trust. The journey doesn't end here. But now you have the tools, the awareness, and most importantly, the belief that change is possible. And that makes all the difference.